For roughly 95% of human history, nobody ate 3 meals a day. Most people ate once, maybe twice, whenever food was available. The idea of a scheduled breakfast, a midday lunch, and an evening dinner is less than 200 years old in most of the world. And the reason it exists has almost nothing to do with nutrition. Think about what you did this morning. You woke up, and at some point, you ate breakfast. Not because you necessarily planned it, not because you sat down and decided that 7 a.m. was the optimal fueling window for your body. You did it because that's what you do in the morning. It's just what happens. It feels as natural as breathing. But it isn't natural. It's a schedule. And somebody built that schedule for reasons that had nothing to do with you, your hunger, or your health. And once you understand where it actually came from, you will never look at your lunch break the same way again. Right now, your body is running on a meal schedule that was standardized during the Industrial Revolution. Not by doctors, not by nutritionists, by factory owners who needed their workers back at the machines at a predictable time. Breakfast at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 6. Those aren't biological landmarks, they're shift markers. The bell rang, you ate, you went back to work. And that rhythm, born in a textile mill in 1850s England, is still structuring your day in 2024. But to understand how we got there, you have to go back much further, because the story of how humans decided when to eat is really the story of who had the power to make that decision. And for most of history, that person wasn't you. Here's what eating actually looked like for most of human existence. Hunter-gatherers didn't have meal times. They had food availability. You ate when the hunt was successful. You ate when the foraging turned something up. You ate when there was something to eat. And when there wasn't, you didn't. Your body was built for exactly this kind of irregular fueling. The hunger hormone ghrelin, which tells your brain you need food, is almost entirely trainable. It spikes on whatever schedule you teach it. It has no preference for noon. It just learns what you repeat. The concept of a structured meal, a specific time of day set aside for eating, only becomes possible when you have enough surplus food to choose when to eat it, which means it's a product of agriculture. And even then, for thousands of years, it looked nothing like 3 meals. In ancient Rome, the dominant belief among physicians and philosophers was that eating more than once a day was unhealthy, gluttonous even. The Roman physician Galen, whose medical ideas shaped European thinking for over 1,000 years, argued that the body needed to fully digest 1 meal before accepting another. Eating twice was considered a sign of weak self-control. The main Roman meal was called the cena. It happened in the late afternoon, sometimes stretching into the evening. Before that, Romans might eat a small piece of bread in the morning called the ientaculum, but it barely qualified as a meal. It was more like what you'd grab walking out the door. And at midday, a light snack called the prandium was common but not universal, and definitely not the sit-down event lunch has become. 1 meal late in the day. That was the Roman ideal, and it shaped European eating habits for centuries after Rome collapsed. By medieval Europe, the pattern had shifted slightly. 2 meals a day became the standard for most people. The first meal happened mid-morning after several hours of physical work. The second happened in the late afternoon. Both were practical decisions built around daylight and labor. Breakfast as a concept was morally complicated in medieval Europe. The Catholic Church associated eating immediately upon waking with gluttony and lack of spiritual discipline. Fasting before prayer in the morning was standard practice, which means for a significant chunk of European history, eating in the morning was something you were supposed to feel slightly guilty about. The people who did eat early morning meals were usually those who needed them most. Laborers doing heavy physical work, children, the elderly, and the sick. It was medicinal before it was cultural. Someone had to be too weak or too hungry to wait, and breakfast was what they got. Here's where everything changes. And it changes fast. In the early 1800s, as factories began pulling workers out of agricultural life and into urban labor, something new happened to the human schedule. For the first time in history, a large portion of the population was working indoors on a fixed clock in a building owned by someone else. And that someone else had a significant interest in when their workers stopped working. Factory owners standardized the workday, and built into that standardized workday were fixed break times. A short break mid-morning, a longer break at noon, an end to the shift in the evening. Workers ate during those breaks not because noon was when hunger peaked, but because noon was when the machines stopped. The meal schedule and the production schedule became the same schedule. 3 meals a day wasn't adopted because it was healthy. It was adopted because it was efficient. It fit the factory. And once it fit the factory, it fit the school that fed the factory's children. And once it fit the school, it fit the family. And once it fit the family, it stopped feeling like a choice and started feeling like nature. But there's a fourth layer to this, and it involves one of the most successful pieces of commercial engineering in modern history. In the late 1800s, breakfast in America was not what it is today. Working class families might eat bread or leftovers. Wealthier families ate heavy meals, eggs, meat, whatever was available. The idea of a light, grain-based morning meal specifically designed for breakfast didn't really exist yet. And then John Harvey Kellogg entered the picture. Kellogg was a physician at a sanitarium in Battle Creek, Michigan, with strong views on diet, digestion, and moral health. He developed a range of grain-based foods intended for his patients as easily digestible, low-stimulation alternatives alternatives to heavy morning meals. His brother Will Keith Kellogg saw the commercial potential and turned those products into a business. By the early 1900s, Kellogg's cornflakes and a growing range of competing cereals were being marketed directly to American households, not just as food, but as the correct way to start the day. Advertising campaigns told people that breakfast was the most important meal of the day. That grain-based cereal was scientifically superior to whatever you'd been eating before. That skipping breakfast was dangerous to your health. None of this was based on rigorous science. It was marketing, but it worked. Someone decided what your breakfast looked like, put it in a box with a slogan, and sold it to your great-grandmother. And you are still eating it. Here's the part that complicates everything. Modern nutrition research does not consistently support the three-meal framework as biologically optimal. Studies on intermittent fasting, meal timing, and metabolic health suggest that the body adapts effectively to a wide range of eating patterns. The idea that breakfast is uniquely critical for metabolism has been repeatedly challenged. Some research suggests that skipping breakfast has no significant negative effect on most healthy adults. Other research shows that eating windows, the total hours per day during which you consume food, matter more than meal frequency. Your hunger is real, but when you feel it is largely trained. If you ate breakfast every day at 7 a.m. for the last 10 years, your body learned to expect food at 7 a.m., ghrelin spikes at 7 a.m., you feel hungry at 7 a.m. That feels biological. It's behavioral. Someone set that clock and your body just kept winding it. But here's what makes this genuinely interesting. The three-meal system, for all its manufactured origins, did something real. Shared mealtimes became the primary social architecture of daily life. The family dinner wasn't an accident of factory scheduling. It was a consequence of it. When everyone's shift ended at the same time, everyone came home at the same time, and for the first time in history, an entire household sat down together at a predictable hour. That ritual, whatever its industrial origins, became something else entirely. It became the moment when the day was processed, when children were raised, when relationships were maintained. The factory bell created the family table, and the family table became the center of everything. Now here's the part nobody mentions. 3 meals a day might be manufactured, but the manufacturing produced something humans had never quite had before: predictability. For most of human history, food was uncertainty. You didn't know when the next meal was coming. You ate when you could because you didn't know when you'd eat again. The scheduled meal eliminated that anxiety completely. You know when you're eating next. You know what time lunch is. That knowledge, so ordinary that you never think about it, represents something your ancestors spent their entire lives without. The factory schedule that standardized your eating also ended, for most people in industrialized societies, the ancient fear of not knowing where the next meal was coming from. You inherited a system built for someone else's productivity, and buried inside it was something genuinely valuable. The question is whether you ever stopped to notice. So why do you eat 3 meals a day? Because hunter-gatherers ate whenever food existed, and your body learned to follow whatever pattern you gave it. Because Roman physicians decided 1 meal was morally correct. Because medieval laborers needed fuel before dawn. Because factory owners needed predictable break times. Because a cereal company in Michigan told your great-grandmother that breakfast was the most important meal of the day, and she believed them. Because a school fed children on the same schedule as the factory. Because a family sat down together at 6 o'clock and called it dinner. And because you grew up watching all of that and assumed it was just how eating works. It isn't how eating works. It's how eating was organized. By labor schedules and commercial interests and centuries of cultural habit layered on top of each other until the whole thing looked inevitable. The next time you feel hungry at noon, that's not your body speaking. That's history. A factory bell that stopped ringing 150 years ago that you can still hear every single day, right on schedule.